Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to The Pendulum with Dr. Samori Swygert.
Source Nation, welcome back to The Pendulum. For those that are just joining us, I'm your host, Dr. Samori Swygert, a.k.a. Doc Swag. And as I stated earlier before the break, we're joined today with filmmaker Rahiem Shabazz. And we're going to be discussing his documentary series entitled Elementary Genocide. Very, very, very important documentary film series. We have to discuss this school to prison pipeline, all the variables and factors that are dealing with our youth in the American educational system, and how does it link, how does it fuel the American prison industry, what we can do to intervene and divert that flow. You know, we shouldn't go from the school to the prison. And so it's only right that we have this brother here to chop it up with us, to share with us, to engage in the 4Ds, the discourse, the debate, the dialogue, and the discussion. So with all of that said, Source Nation, let's welcome Mr. Rahiem Shabazz. Rahiem, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing excellent, brother. I'm just glad to be able to speak to the listenership of Source Nation and Dr. Samori.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Now, we're going to get into this because I always like doing my homework and my prep work, and I made sure that I looked at your film series before we even engaged in this conversation, and it was very compelling. Now, there's a lot of people that are joining us right now, and if you're joining us right now, Rahiem, I want you to tell the listeners how they can find you on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, your website. I think you have a new campaign for the next installment of Elementary Genocide.
Yes, I do. Anybody that's interested in following me, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, is at Rahiem Shabazz. I'm also on YouTube, Rahiem Shabazz. I also have a very popular podcast that's called Necessary Blackness, and you can view that on iTunes and Google Play. And in regards to the fundraising campaign, as many of y'all know, we have 2 award-winning documentaries, Elementary Genocide, The School to Prison Pipeline. We have Elementary Genocide 2, the Board of Education versus the Board of Incarceration, and now we're getting ready to put out Elementary Genocide 3, and that's called Academic Holocaust. And previously, I funded my projects 100% out of my pocket. This time, I'm asking our supporters and the gatekeepers of the community to help out. We only asked for $10,000. I'm putting up the rest of the money. So we in the process of doing that, and anybody that's interested can go to Indiegogo.com, and search for Elementary Genocide, or you could just go to elementarygenocide.com and click on the link right there.
All right, great. So listeners, you've been hit with the task and the information, so let's make this happen. Now, Brother Shabazz, can you briefly tell us the aim of your documentary film series, Elementary Genocide? What's the aim of it?
Well, initially the aim was to spread the message and let people know what was going on. Then we came back and we seen that, many people didn't know what was going on and that they was upset, So each series or each documentary is almost like a call to action. And what we want to do is we want to get people to start getting involved in the PTA meetings. People will be more proactive, start looking outside of the public education system, start homeschooling. There are many, many successful African-centered schools around the country. I employ everybody if you're in a position to enroll your children in those schools. And we're just trying to raise the consciousness and the vibrational pitch of our people.
Nice aim. Nice aim. Very important. Key stuff right there. Now, the school-to-prison pipeline. It's a very important topic that mainstream America, they kind of skirt away from that. They know it exists, yet they won't really bring it up. You know, you have your mega TV outlets, you know, your MSNBC, your CNN, and Fox and ABC and all of that, but they don't really tackle it. Now, you assembled a cast of contributors, and you guys tackled it brilliantly. I listened to the questions that you posed to extract that dialogue from your contributors, and it was like, you know what, this is the conversation that needed to be had in America. Now, was there any personal motivation that got you started on this path? Because, I mean, you did 2, you're working on 3. Was there any personal motivation that got you, like, I need to speak truth to power on this?
From very young, I was always involved in some form of protest or the social justice movement. I'm from the unruly streets of Harlem. I grew up. I'm part of the 5% nation of Gods and Earth. So I was always a knowledgeable person. However, like many of my peers, I found myself on the wrong side of the law, and I was incarcerated behind enemy lines. But that did not negate the fact of what I was taught to think and who I was. And so when everything begins to unravel and you look back and you want to get your life together, you start looking at certain people that influence you throughout your travels. And my influence came from a lot of books that I read. And I read Marcus Garvey, The Opinions of Marcus Garvey. And one of the things that he said was that intelligence rules the world and ignorance carries the burden. I never wanted to be a burden for my people. So me doing film, you know, I did a lot of films, romance, comedy, and I've been involved in the filming industry for a minute. But when I ventured into documentary filmmaking, I wanted to do something that would be impactful and that would, you know, change what was going on. And I think Elementary Genocide documentary did exactly that. You know, in fact, a lot of people are surprised that it got the notoriety that it did get. And, you know, it could have been more mainstream, but those that need to know are finding out about it, whether it's through them seeing it, people speaking about it, you know, town hall meetings. I've been toured all over the country, and everybody's receptive to it. Excellent. Now, you're working on the 3rd installment, correct? Absolutely. Okay. Can you tell us, how does the content evolve from each installment? Because, you know, you have the 1, the 2, and now you're on the 3rd. How does that content evolve? Well, one of the unique things about this, I know when people see 1, 2, and 3, and people, you know, a lot of people say, well, I want to get 1 first, and then I'll get 2, and I can't wait to watch 3. The good thing about the way that I formulated, you could watch 2, you could watch 3, and you could watch 1. There's no sequential order that it needs to be watched in. But however, 1 is primarily focused on the school-to-prison pipeline. And we look at the government and the school system and how they look at the reading scores of 3rd and 4th graders to determine how many prisons they're going to build in the next 10 to 15 years. And these prisons are run by private corporations, and, you know, they make money off of it. And statistics tell us that if you're not reading on the 3rd or 4th grade level, by the time you're in the 3rd or 4th grade, there's a 75% chance that you're going to jail. And numbers don't lie. So we explored that in the first one. The second one, after going around the country screening and talking with people, my focus was mainly on young boys. I have since learned that within the last 30 years, there have been an 800% increase in the incarceration of women, and also black boys 3 to 4 times more likely to be suspended than whites. And when it comes to black females, they're 6 times more likely to be suspended than their white counterparts. So we explored that in part 2, which is called Board of Education versus the Board of Incarceration. And what we did was we went back to the landmark ruling of Brown versus the Board of Education in the 1954 landmark ruling. And we asked the proverbial question, have integration done us more harm than good? And we know that it done us more harm because during that time, they integrated the students, but they didn't integrate the teachers. 82,000 teachers lost their job. So now that brings us to Elementary Genocide Part 3, Academic Holocaust. And in this one, what we're doing is we're showing that the assassination of the mind and your critical thinking is no different than the extrajudicial killings of black and brown youth of America. And we show the correlation, and we just, bring it all the way around. So we putting it straight front forward in people's face. And I think this is the one that, people is really going to take notice to it. If you took notice to 1 and 2, then 3 is really going to have that aha moment for you.
Okay. All right. I hope everybody's listening and paying attention. Now, you pointed out some stats. I want to make sure that people heard that. Can you just briefly, reiterate what you were saying about the black female incarceration rate, the trend?
In the last 30 years, there has been an 800% increase in black women being incarcerated. And we have to understand that when you take away the female out of the household, 9 times out of 10, those kids end up in foster care. And when they're in foster care, you have a lot of things that goes wrong. Foster care is rampant with abuse and sexual abuse and violence, and just child not being with his mother or father has a psychological effect on them. They, in return, does not perform as well in school. There was a statistic that came out that said 70% of those that was in foster care actually wind up in jail. And this was a study that was done in California. So you see the cycle and the process, so we have to break that generational curse. So that's the statistics for the females. And with the males, when I was talking, black children are 3 to 4 times more likely to be suspended or expelled from school than their white counterparts. And this is for the same offense. If it's fighting, whether it's being defiant, talking back to your teacher. White children don't get suspended for that. Black does. And there's a disproportionate rate in the suspensions of blacks and when you look at white children.
Now,
and let me say this. The unique thing about this is, right, when I started doing a study for this in 2010. I actually released my first documentary in 2013. And people used to be like, you really believe someone sitting in the room and doing this and looking at statistics? Like, come on, Ron, this sounds like an urban myth. And then, lo and behold, the United States president, the man of the free world, the commander-in-chief of the United States, when he gave his State of the Union speech, he mentioned the school-to-prison pipeline. And I think the reason why he did is because one of the principal individuals that's in there. His name is Tracy Syphax. He actually won the Champion of Change Award in 2014 and was invited to the White House for his work on reentry and entrepreneurship. So, yeah, it reached all the way to, 16, whatever the address is, Pennsylvania Ave in Washington, D.C.
1600, that's right.
1600,
wow.
1600. I'm going to say 1616. It's 1600. Okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You bring up some interesting factors in it, and I want you to speak on this. I'm just going to throw it out there. You have the closing of public schools in many of these major cities, Philly, New York, Detroit, Chicago, all across the country. You're seeing this exponential rise of charter schools. And charter schools, they kind of get to, make their own policies. You just illuminated a lot of the statistics on expulsion and suspension. When I was watching your documentary, you were also talking about the expulsion and suspension, and you were also talking about the tracking that goes on. Can you speak to that a little bit and see, does that play a part in that kind of funneling the kids into the pipeline? Once you start putting on these public schools, these charter schools, establishing their own policies, and then this tracking and suspension that's happening.
Okay. Now, one thing I want to say before I get to the answer, it'll all come around, is that when I did the documentary, I was under the assumption that school to prison pipeline begins in the 3rd and 4th grade. That is the time where they're able to track it, but it begins long before that. It actually begins when a black or brown youth steps foot in a kindergarten class. And there's statistics of that. The Department of Justice validated the statistics that's out there about that. So I wanted to get that out there. Now, when we're talking about charter schools and public schools, charter schools is run like a business. They have a board, they have a CEO, they have an IPO, and they have investors. And they do need a return on their investment. And you mentioned about the closing downs of public schools in Chicago. I think it was 40-something schools closed down. That's a hate crime when you close down that many schools in a black neighborhood. They're doing the same thing in Philly. They did the same thing in New York, and they're doing it all across the country. And a lot of times when you see things happen sporadically, something big is getting ready to happen. And I think it already did happen with the Secretary of Education. What's her name? Betsy DeVos. What's her name?
DeVos, yep. Yeah. Betsy DeVos, that's right.
Yeah, this lady here, she wants to do away with the entire public school system. And when you have situations like that, when there's a problem, you always have to follow the money. She's a billionaire. Her friends are million and billionaires. And what's going to happen is you got to ask yourself the question, like when they close these schools and they build these charter schools, who's going to get the contract? Who's going to be the investors? And it's all about money. So that's one of the key components of it. And then also some of these board members that sit on the board of these charter schools are also heavily invested in private prison. You will notice that the day after the inauguration, the day after the election results, when it was declared that Trump was the winner, the stocks went up in private prison. When Obama said that he was not going to renew the contracts with private prisons, little by little he was going to fade it out, the stocks dropped tremendously. So all of this is being dictated from Washington, D.C. You just got to follow the money.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let's just make sure we get this right for those that are just joining us. Listeners, if you're just joining right now, I want to say welcome and thank you for listening to the Pendulum on Source Nation, Source Radio Network. We're having a discussion with acclaimed award-winning filmmaker Rahiem Shabazz, and he's talking about his series of documentary films, Elementary Genocide, that tackle the whole school-to-prison pipeline and all the other factors that all come together with our children ending up being the primary victims. And so we're having a discussion about that. If you want to call in, the number is 619-924-0933, and you just press number 1 if you want to speak to get in the queue. Also, Rahiem, I want to make sure that those that just joined us, what is your social media tags again, and quickly about your campaign, your funding campaign for Part 3?
In regards to social media, anybody that's interested in me, you can get at me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. My handle is @Rahiem Shabazz, and we do have an ongoing campaign for Elementary Genocide 3, Academic Holocaust. We have it on Indiegogo. You can go to Indiegogo.com and put Elementary Genocide in the search engine, or you simply can go to elementarygenocide.com, and we're asking for you to contribute to the solution so that we get rid of the problem. And we're not just asking for your money. Those that donate a certain level, you get advanced copy of the DVD. You also can get 3 download versions. We got signed movie posters and a whole lot of different other perks. You know, there's levels to everything. So you just go on the website and you check it out and contribute to the solution. You know, because we are the holders and keepers of ourselves in predicament, and if we don't do it, ain't nobody else going to do it. It ain't coming up out of 1600 Pennsylvania Street, and we already know what Trump's trying to do to us.
100% right there. 100% right there. Okay, Brother Shabazz, I have another item that I want to address. I want to get into policy. We had President Bush with the No Child Left Behind policy. We have Barack Obama's My Brother's Keeper. There's another policy I'm not bringing to
what's it called? Race
memory.
to the Top?
Yes, Race to the Top. And then we had this new bill out of Missouri about, hitting these kids with felonies for just simple, altercations, fisticuffs. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, that situation that's going on in the Midwest, it's real tragic because what people got to understand is Obama came out with a memorandum that he sent to each state and, was telling them that the Justice Department is being monitoring the suspension rates because of the school-to-prison pipeline. And he made certain recommendations. Several states adapted it, but certain states said to hell with that, and they made their own laws. And that's typically what the state in the Midwest did. And it's a tragedy because this, right? And we talk about this in the second documentary. I interviewed a judge, and one of the things that he was saying was neurologists did a comprehensive study and found out that the front lobe of your brain is not fully developed until you in your mid-20s. So here it is. You have young, not even teenagers, children doing childish things and making mistakes, and you expect them to think like an adult. And that's why I posted on Facebook that they would treat you like a child and they will punish you like an adult. And you have to remember, before I or any one of us was old and wise, we was young and stupid. So you got to give these kids a chance. Everybody deserves a second chance. You know how many fights I had in school? You know how many felonies I would have right now on top of the things I already got? Like, this is crazy. This is crazy. But, and that's why we have to push back. Anybody that voted on that, they need to be out of office immediately.
Okay.
And that's why, I tell people, if you're in a position, you need to homeschool your kids. And if you're not in a position where you have to work, because, that's the realities. Some of us got to work. Some parents are working 2 and 3 jobs. Then you need to be a part of a co-op. In certain states, you get a tax incentive. Certain states, they pay you to homeschool your kids. We need to look at how they got it passed in those states to get that on the ballot. That's something that we can do, and we don't have to go to Washington, D.C. You can do that right in your home state. Like, there's little things like that we could do where, okay, you fight in school, it's a felony, but you homeschool, so that don't apply to you. And statistically, those that are homeschooled, they achieve higher academic success than those that went to regular public school.
Right. And, and it only makes sense, too, because you get more individualized attention, without interruptions and things like that's okay. And
then another good thing about homeschooling, I don't know how every state operates different. You have to check the laws and the rules and regulations of your respective state. But here in Atlanta, I think it is you do it 4 days a week. No, it's 3 days a week and 4 hours a day. You get to pick the hours that you want. So you could be homeschooling at night, when you come home if you work in the morning. So there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. You just gotta, we just gotta be smart enough to figure this thing out. And I don't know all the answers, and how I find out a lot of my information is I do research. Like, even if you don't go to school, you can get on that laptop and go to Google University and find out this information.
Yes. Okay. With that being said, there was another segment in your documentary where they were discussing testing, like Common Core, standards of learning, and even financing and funding, because I know you're talking about like the nonprofit sectors. How does all this play in, or how does that fit in, or what do we need to be thinking about as parents when it comes to this testing and financing?
I think, brother, Dr. Umar Johnson, he did a hell of a job in explaining it, where he talked about the so-called father of psychology, who was a white racist that came up with the notion that you could measure someone's intelligence. Those standardized tests is racially and culturally biased. Certain words that they use that are not the vernacular of someone that's a melanated individual. And it's, they teach to the test. You don't really learn nothing outside of that. You don't learn how to be a critical thinker. And what it does essentially is prepare you to be either a model prisoner or for you to be a labor worker and work in corporate America. And I tell people all the time, corporate America is the plantation. Whether you like it or not, I don't care how much money you make. It is a corporate plantation. Your desk is your 40 acres, and your computer is a mule. And I'm not saying don't work for corporate America, and you shouldn't have a job there, but you should have a side hustle. You have to do something that is self-sufficient for yourself, because none of that is guaranteed. And a lot of us, we have skills that we need to tap into. There's so many different things out here, whether it's building apps, computer engineering, a lot of things that we can do and take the lead role in doing it. and we don't have to work for corporate America. And the thing about it is some of our brightest minds are stuck in corporate America, and they rely on that money when they could take that insight and that knowledge and build their own company and do something that's going to push their race of people forward. Because no matter what, those corporations don't care nothing about black and melanated people. We see that every day.
Brother Shabazz, just give 1 second. I do believe we have a caller in the queue. Caller with the last 4 digits of 0577. You're live on the air. You have a question or comment for Rahiem Shabazz?
Yes, hi. Good evening, brothers. How are you?
Doing great, sister.
Yes, great. I am so glad that you guys are having this conversation. And Brother Shabazz, I wanted to ask you, when you were making your documentaries, even up until the third one, did you get a lot of negative feedback? I know you got a lot of positive feedback, but did you receive a lot of negative feedback from even blacks, white people? I'm sure they're going to have something to say, but what about among us? Did you get negative feedback from them?
Surprisingly, no. I have taught and spoke all over. I'm talking about I have went out to Long Beach in California, and it was standing room only, and I want to say it probably was 85% predominantly white, and after I screened the movie, they gave me a standing ovation, and I was like, wow. And we living in a different time where a lot of white folks, not all of them, but there's some of them that want to be on the right side of history, and they know wrong is wrong. And I went to Oregon. I was out there in November of last year, and almost the same thing. So they get it and they understand it. Now, however, my last two speaking engagements, 2 black people, they stood up and they said they loved the message, they loved everything about the documentary. There was one thing they couldn't agree on, and that was where Umar Johnson said that it should be a crime for someone from the race of the oppressor to teach the oppressed. And people had a problem with that, and that should never be a problem. We have a problem because we want to teach our own. So we have to get rid of that mindset out of our people that think that the white man ice is colder. First and foremost, in the European education system, we teach from a lineal aspect from the left side of the brain. We are African people. We are communion people. We learn by different various ways of teaching. There's not no one way of teaching that we learn from. And Europeans, they teach from one aspect. They teach that if you can't weigh it, measure it, or count it, it don't exist. And that's not the Afrocentric way of teaching, and it has been proven that black male, whether male or female, when they are taught by somebody that looks like them or that comes from their cultural background, they excel extremely higher in their education endeavors. So, we always going to have those handkerchief head Negroes that, want to do the bidding for Whitey. But other than that, people love the documentary. And the thing about it is there's a lot of strong, not no cursing or nothing like that, but there's a lot of strong language in there, because we're not sugarcoating nothing. History tells us what happened, what will continue to happen, and what we have to do. John Henry Clark, he said when it came to Europeans educating us that we have to be careful because these are the same people that will have you believe that we're one chromosome away from being farm animals. So they believed that back then, and they believe that today. So you have to be very careful. Now, in I don't want to spend too much long on this, but in closing, I will say this. I had one white teacher that took a real keen interest in not just me, but the class that she was teaching. Her name is Miss Vareska, and she gave me the book by Cloyd McKay, and it was called Man, Child in the Promised Land. That book changed my life, you know, and she really, really, like, she could have given us any type of book, but she was giving us books like that. That was the first book that piqued my interest. And then after that, it was every James Baldwin book and different things like that. But this was a white woman. But what are we going to do? We're going to wait for another 60 years for another John Brown, a liberal white woman to come along? Nah, we're going to do this ourselves. And that's just my stance and how I feel. I'm sorry if I'm going on a rant, y'all.
No.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's fine. But I wanted to ask you one more question. I know they passed that law recently in Missouri about if the children are fighting, it becomes a felony. Do you know if that's the only state or if other states are gearing up to follow suit as well? And, of course, we all know that definitely has to do with blacks, because that's just definitely one way to get them into the system.
Yeah, as far as I know, that is the first and only state. And a lot of times, what happens is, you know, that state will be used as a testing ground to see what type of pushback they get, what type of outrage they get, and if there's no real outrage, you know, they'll pass that legislation when there's political turmoil, and we talking about Russia and whether Donald Trump cheated the election, they'll pass that right through, and half the world won't know, and nothing won't be said about it until 2-3 years down the line, and you know they tally up the numbers and say 300 people had felonies for fighting in school, and then we'll be outraged, and it'll be we'd be $1 short and a day late.
Speak on it, brother. Speak on it. That's truth right there. Truth.
Well, thank you so much for taking my call, and I do appreciate it, and I love tuning into your show, Samori, so keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much, Rahiem.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Good. Yeah, listeners are chiming in. That's what I'm talking about. That, but what you said is true. I was thinking about it myself. Like, we keep talking this Russia, and I'm like, they're probably slipping all types of bills and laws under the radar, and we're just not even paying attention. But there's something else too, though, that I want to talk about, because we hit the testing. Solutions. Do you think that, starting our own schools, I know you spoke about homeschooling, having more black teachers, weekend educational curriculum, and African cultural-centered after-school programs, do you think that those will be, starters, or should be the backbone for getting our children out of the target of the school-to-prison pipeline?
I think that is a start. And I also, not only is it a start, but, when we deal with education, right, you have content and intent, right? Content is what you teach, and intent is how you teach it. So we have to look at the intentions of the individuals that's teaching in these African-centered schools or in these home schools. And if we're not teaching them how to apply whatever they learn to go back in their community and move their way forward, then it's a failure. That has to be the number one focus. We have to get back to that where it takes a village, and it's going to take those that graduate from these schools and acquire these skills to come back to the community from which they're from and to lift other brothers and sisters up. So, in answering your question, yes, it is a start. Another thing we have to do is that we have to pool our resources together, and we have to buy black and spend amongst our own. because we can have a good education, make a lot of money, but if we're gonna go spend it with the open enemy and don't circulate that money back into our community, then everything you was taught and everything you learned, you're not applying it. So it really means nothing at the end of the day. It's just self-gratification. It helped you, but it doesn't help the community.
Now, you're working on a third installment. When do you have a release date schedule, or is that still kind of like when can people expect that?
The only thing I can say is it was expected very soon. It will be. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't like to give no release date because you can't rush creativity. Like I have a release date in mind, but when you're doing these documentaries, anything could go wrong, and you know, my process is, you know, I can look at it and be like, oh yeah, I like it, but more so than anything, I'm biased because it's my work. So what I do is do like a focus group, and I have a couple of people come over and look at it and critique it, you know, and sometimes, you know, people might tell me, Rahiem, that's the home run. Put that out tomorrow, and then, you know, I'll put it out. But it's gonna be done soon. We finished shooting, you know, principal photography and everything like that. So we're in the editing process right now. So picture and sound, everything's locked, loaded, and we just editing and fine tuning it and getting it ready for public consumption. And I will say this, I'll go on record and say that this will be the last in the Elementary Genocide documentary series. It won't be my last documentary, but as far as Elementary Genocide, there will not be a 4. I think after 1, 2, and 3, there should be no reason for 4, because these documentaries are called to action, and we are giving you solutions, and it's up to you to follow these solutions. When you look at the word responsibility, you have to respond to your ability. And we all got the ability to bring about change. You just got to do it, man.
Okay, I got two quick questions for you.
All right. What time are we wrapping this up? After 2 questions.
We wrapping up real shortly.
Okay. I got another interview, and they hit me on the line. But we finish the 2 questions.
Sure. What do you want children and parents to take home from watching your film series? What should they take? What should they walk away with?
I want parents to be more proactive in their children's lives. I want parents to know that school doesn't begin at 8 a.m. in the morning when the bell rings and doesn't end at 3 p.m. You have to send them to that European school, get that European education, but when they come home, you need to decolonize them and give them that African-centric education. So parents need to be more proactive in their child's lives, and they need to know that you can't legislate your kids to do their homework. So don't look to Washington, D.C. because your kids is not doing your homework. That's your responsibility. We do bear some of the responsibility. As far as the students, they need to know that education is the great equalizer. When we dealing with education and you're looking at everything, we have to go back in history. In the 1800s, Carter G. Woodson, he was born the son of a slave. He worked in the coal mines in West Virginia, and at the age of 20, he entered high school. He entered high school at the age of 20. Some of us don't even graduate. Some of us graduate at the age of 20. That's if you messed up in high school. But he finished that in 2 years. So he went to high school but finished in 2 years. And after that, he got a master's degree, and he completed his coursework for a PhD at Harvard in 1 year. That's phenomenal. He knew the importance of education. Then in 1875, you had Mary Bethune, who worked the cotton fields of South Carolina. and she was one of 17 children born to former slaves, was the only child that went to school. So out of 17 kids, she went to school. And the reason being, her parents said, you know what, one of these kids is going to make it and be able to help everybody else. So she went to school, she graduated, and she excelled extremely high in school. And eventually she opened up her own school and a hospital for blacks. She knew education was a great equalizer. And then lastly, we had Benjamin E. Mays. He was the son of a sharecropper, born into slavery and worked in the tobacco fields in South Carolina. He was 20 years old before he would even go to high school, just like Mary Bethune. And he went on to be called the Great Schoolmaster of America and a top advisor for Martin Luther King. So they knew education was a great equalizer, and every Black History Month, we talk about them. But we shouldn't be talking about them just during February. We need to emulate what they did. And what they did was not a selfish act. They did it for their race and for the people.
Yes, 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 yes. All right. So we're going to really wrap it up. Once again, you want to plug your social media for everybody that may have just tuned in the last minute?
I didn't hear you. Say that again?
I said, I know you got to get ready to go, but did you want to plug your social media to reach you at the last minute?
Oh, yes. Anybody that's interested in reaching out to me, you can get at me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Rahiem Shabazz. You also can check me out on elementarygenocide.com. That's the official website if you want to go and order DVDs. Also, every Wednesday at 6 p.m., Necessary Blackness Podcast. Check that out on iTunes and Google Play.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Rahiem Shabazz. Positive education always causes elevation right there. It means peace to his brother for joining the show. Thank you so much for joining us. Source Nation, so thankful for tuning in with us and then just engaging in this dialogue and discussion. This is The Pendulum. I am Dr. Samori Swygert, a.k.a. Doc Swag. You can tune in to Source Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Source Radio. My show every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. But you always want to stay plugged into our channel because we have so many great shows that will tickle your fancy and satisfy your palate. Once again, I have to thank our sponsors. They are WGLRO.com, Scott Cares Foundation, Urban Grandstand Digital, Meet My Types Matchmaking. Also, source you can contact me on Twitter at DocSwag06, DOCSWAGG06. My website, www.blackladder.net, black like the color, ladder like the device you climb, .net. Facebook fan page, 2MASC, stands for 2 minutes and some change. If you want to see me on YouTube, you can type in my name, Samori, Samori, Swygert, Swygert. You can type that into YouTube. You can find that under a lot of Dr. Boyce Watkins videos on Dr. Boyce Watkins' channel. And lastly, I encourage you to check out my CD. I have a musical CD, and I have an audio book of great essays. The musical CD is entitled Porn, and it stands for Poetry, Oration, Rhythm, and Narratives. And you can also check out my audio book, Speak On It, Mandatory Conversations for Black America. All those available on Amazon, iTunes, Google Play, and CD Baby. Make sure you want to check all of that out. And also the porn, the Poetry, Oration, Rhythm, and Narratives, that is all original score music, all done by historically Black College University alum music majors from Hampton, Howard, and Norfolk State. And that's it. Source Nation, we are out of here, and thank you for tuning in. Peace.